Good day, viewers. Welcome to Meet the Leader program. And today we are extremely honored to have the former head of state of Nigeria, President Olusegun Obasanjo. President Obasanjo, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much.
President Obasanjo, there is a belief that family background does influence leadership aspiration and ambitions. In your case, as a former president of Nigeria, to what extent did your family background influence your leadership ambitions?
Well, I think the scientists have proved now that genes have something to do with the totality of one's life. So to the extent that the scientists are correct, I must have taken certain things from my father and my mother. And if you are talking of family background in that sense, of course, I will only have God to thank and my father and mother to thank for what I turned out to be in life. But there's no doubt that there's imprint of the family on the offspring, and I will not be different from that.
President Obasanjo, leadership was thrown upon you the year 1976 when you narrowly escaped an assassination attempt which killed the then President Murtala Muhammad. At that time, when you took over the leadership, what was your vision of the great nation of Nigeria?
Well, don't forget that I was a very close collaborator of Murtala Muhammad. We were working together. In fact, they called that regime Murtala Obasanjo regime. Murtala and I were working together. We had great vision of Nigeria. And I believe we were, as a result of, youth, what we believe we were doing, we were also a little bit naive. We took security a bit lightly. That was why Murtala was killed the way he was killed, and those who killed Murtala thought they killed me too, because the route that I was taking to work, they manned that route with a gun, but another officer who was just ahead of me was shot. So Murtala and I had a great vision, a great idea, for not only for Nigeria, but for Africa. When we came into power, the situation in Angola was on, and because we just came into power, I remember, I was supposed to go to Addis and represent Nigeria. But when I went to to give my speech to Murtala, where one of the key sentences in that speech is that Africa has come of age and nobody should be telling us in Africa what we have to do for ourselves. Murtala thought that this is a very weighty speech. It shouldn't be given on his behalf by his number 2 issue. Go to Addis Ababa and give the speech. And of course, that make a turning point, or some people will now call a tipping point in Nigeria's foreign policy delivery. So we also believe that, oh yes, Africa should be totally liberated. Apartheid should have no place on the continent of Africa. That was why at that time, with the efforts being made here in Tanzania with Mwalimu, President Kaunda, and the other frontline states, we were reckoned by virtue of our commitment, our orientation, our policy. We were reckoned as a member of frontline state, even though physically and geographically we were not in the front line.
Did you think at that time your vision was well understood by your cabinet and general public at large in Nigeria?
I think by and large we carried the generality of Nigerians along with us. For instance, we set up something we call Southern African Liberation Fund, where we explain to our people in Nigeria what our policy is, why we believe in what we believe in. And Nigerians who are working in the public and the private sector volunteered 5% of their salary for 1 month and contributed into that fund, which of course was remitted to the front line to prosecute the effort for liberation and for dealing with the issue of apartheid. And you know, government policies, if it's very well formulated and very well explained to people, where sacrifices needed to be made, they will be willing to make it. Where work is needed to be given, they will be ready to give it. Not everybody, but if you have what I would call substantial or critical mass of the people going along with you, that's what is important.
What leadership lesson did you learn in bringing your vision to reality?
Oh, one, you must be very, very clear in your own mind, and you must be able to present, because you must communicate. You must be able to present your policy. And there must be no doubt. There must be no ambiguity. There must be no vagueness. This, and it's clear. And this is why. And in the case of our policy in Southern Africa, we say, look, for as long as we allow colonization and apartheid, just because of the color of our skin, then wherever we are as human beings, we are second class. And that doesn't apply to me alone. It applies to all Nigerians. It applies to all black people. And look, and nobody will want to be seen as a second-class citizen in the world or wherever he lives. So we make it clear to them, and they understand. So the lesson for me, and I believe for all leaders, should be your policy must be clear. It must be policy that has no ambiguity about it, and you must be able to communicate it and put it across in a very simple, clear language that people will understand, accept or reject. I would not say everybody will accept your policy, but there must be no doubt about where you stand and why you stand where you stand.
You came back to power in the year 1999 until 2007 as a president of Nigeria. If you look at the two periods you served, 1976 and 1999 to 2007, were there any differences in your leadership approaches between these two periods?
Well, not difference in leadership approaches, but I was dealing with two different dispensations. As a military head of state, of course, you are dealing with the military. All my subordinates, whether they are state governors or state administrators, and more than 50% of my ministers were all military. And the military, to that extent, they understand what it is when you say this is an order. Then, of course, in a military setting, the military government is both the executive and the legislature. So that makes things a little bit easier. When I came back at the end of my period as a military government leader, 20 years later, in 1999, I was dealing with a party political system where I have to carry the party along, the party leadership. I have the National Assembly. I have to carry the National Assembly along. It was also a little bit easy because my party controlled the two chambers of the National Assembly. But all the same, it's not a question of saying, well, look, if I explain, they will take it. I have to convince them. I have to persuade them. I have to make them understand. And nothing should be taken for granted. I may see things in a particular way, and either the members of the National Assembly or even one of the two chambers of the National Assembly may not see it the way I see it as the leader of the executive. And it's my job, my responsibility. At one time, they even were, I had the threat of impeachment. Well, as a military ruler, except coup, nobody will tell you to your face and say, look, we want to remove you. But as elected president in a democratic setting, the National Assembly has power to impeach a sitting president for misconduct.
Every leader, President Obasanjo, experiences time of crisis or difficulties. In your experience as both military head of state and democratic elected head of state, were there any moments, maybe one you can recall that was a crisis and how you dealt with it?
One was when I was military head of state, when Muritala died. We were caught unawares. And then, of course, I was even declared dead because the car that was fired on the route that I used to take to work, they assumed that I was in it, and they declared me dead. And that was a very trying period for Nigeria and for me, because the boys who led that coup were Christians. Muritala was a Muslim. He was killed on a Friday. You can see that all that wrapped together in a country that is almost divided 50-50 between Christians and Muslims. And that was really, it was touch and go. Could we manage to put the lead on what could become a violence that could consume the country? We quickly had to send people out. And some Muslim leaders have started saying, well, you see what the Christians are doing and all that. That was a very, very bad time. We were able to survive it. As an elected president, there were times like in the Niger Delta the militant, that was an ongoing thing, and how do I have to deal with it? Because in that area, in the Niger Delta area, I fought in the area during the Civil War. I knew the area. And when I was military head of state, I knew the area, I knew all the people. There wasn't anything like militancy. By the time I came back, 20 years later, the whole area had turned a different thing. I wanted to find out, how do you handle a situation like this? What do we do? The leaders who were not actively supporting, they were neutral. So I decided to reach out to the militants themselves. They were in the creek area, very difficult terrain. About 40 of them. I brought them I said, look, no matter what crime you have committed, just come out. There is temporary amnesty for you. Come and talk to me. But 40 of them came out, and I sat with them. I said, look, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Before they even talked to me, some of them haven't seen themselves for years. Oh, you killed my father, I killed your brother. Oh. And my chief of staff turned to me and said, Mr. President, you are sitting among murderers. I said, yes, I know. He said, well, what do you want me to tell the world? How do I explain to the world that my president is sitting among murderers? I said, you have to tell the world that your president has a problem and is looking for a solution for the problem. So he will sit among anybody who can help him to find solution to the problem. Now, that was a trying period. And again, they spoke out their mind. I was able to reach out to them. Why are you doing this? I said, what are you telling me? When you were military head of state, you established universal primary education. That's why I was able to go to school. And then I went to primary school, I went to secondary school, I went to university. I thought because I come from an oil-producing area, I studied mining engineering. 4 years I have left university, I have no job. What do you expect me to do? That explains it. So that then gave me substantial answer to the problem.
In your view, President Obasanjo, what makes a good leader?
That's a question. A good leader must be clear of his mission, and he must have a vision. And he must then be able to find ways and means of achieving his objective. What is his mission? And that mission must be clear. It must be defined in a very clear and simple way. Once somebody asked me, said, what is your mission? I said, my mission is simple. The welfare and well-being of every Nigerian at home and abroad. Simple. Now, everything that I do must therefore go towards that.
Which leader or leaders have inspired you the most?
I have learned from all leaders that I have come across or about whom I have read, including my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. To me, is the greatest leader that has ever lived. But the other day, in fact, today, I was talking about Mwalimu here, who I interacted with. He was a great leader, a man of honesty and candor. Now, some leaders are not that. They will try and cover up. They will try and pretend. This was a man about whom there's no pretension. You get from him what you see. There are others like that. But I read biographies and autobiographies, and there you learn about people who have one thing or the other that you will admire or like about them. And of course, there's nobody who is a bundle of perfection. There will also be mistakes that they have made. And of course, if anybody makes a mistake, you can forgive and put it aside.
What challenges, in your view and experience, you think African leaders experiences, which are peculiar to Africa, that leaders in developed nations don't experience?
I think mainly two things: waste and lack of stable and enduring institution that can help leadership. And when I talk of waste, waste in many, many forms. Waste through corruption, waste through malpractices. And I believe that most African countries, they could go 50% more than they do go with the same resources they have if they can eliminate waste. And that, when you have crying needs to achieve the welfare and well-being of your people, any little bit of waste detracts from what you want to achieve. And then, of course, as I said, lack of durable, stable institutions. In settled society, they have institutions that you take many things for granted. It will just happen. In our own situation, those institutions are either fragile or not there at all. Where they are there, it makes things easier.
What advice, President Obasanjo, will you give to young, aspiring African leaders?
They should have vision, and they should have a sense of mission. Last night I was talking to three, and I asked them, the three of them, separately, what is your goal? Out of three, only one of them passed that test, as far as I'm concerned. The other two, well, I want to live a life for my family, I want to be comfortable, and that's no life. If that is all that you want for, that's your goal, then to me, it's not life worth living if you are going to live life for yourself, alone. But one of them said, yes, this country, Tanzania, I want to be able to make impact. I said, well done. That's the man after my heart. You must have a goal that encompasses more than you, your immediate family, or your immediate community. You must have a national goal. You must even have, if possible, a global goal. And that is what I would say to any young man or woman, African.
Our interview is coming to an end. This is an excellent interview. What is your concluding remark to Africa? Because Africa is listening to you.
We see that Africa is on the upswing again. We should not lose this opportunity. We had opportunity like that immediately after independence in the early 60s. That opportunity disappeared because essentially of our own making and because of the making of some of our friends and development partners. This time around, we should be the architect of our own fortune, and we should never allow this opportunity, second chance, to go to slip away. And that is the responsibility of all Africans, young, old, men, women, and if we work together, not just looking at the interest of our countries or even our sub-regions, but the interest of the continent as a continent, interest of Africa as a people, we'll get there.
Viewers, I'm sure you have enjoyed and learned a lot from President Obasanjo on this program of Meet the Leader. We thank you and wish you a good day. President Obasanjo, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.